Welcome back. Here we are, week 3. You have made it. You should be proud of yourself. If you're not, give yourself some love. You know what I mean? You need to be proud of yourself because for you to make it 3 weeks says a lot about you, about the woman you are, and the woman that you are becoming. I appreciate you taking this journey with me and diving deeper into understanding yourself, understanding relationships. And today is one of my favorite topics because it's what I do, therapy. As you can see, feel free to use the hashtag try therapy. It's something that I just want to get people more exposed to begin the process of doing things different, healing, dealing with their stuff. So this profession has really changed my life in a lot of different ways. I would not be the man I am without therapy. I wouldn't be the man I am without this profession. I don't know any other profession that forces you to look at you. So in order for me to be great at what I do, I have to be great at being myself. Therapy to me helps you become your authentic self, meaning living life on your own terms. And when you live life on your own terms, that's when you're able to live a very successful and healthy life, period. So I want to provide you with some information about therapy. I challenge you to try therapy. To me, creating a healthy relationship, establishing a healthy relationship takes work, takes time, takes a lot of education and knowledge and experience. So oftentimes we're not taught how to establish and maintain a healthy relationship, so we have to learn. So I want to give you a story. As you can tell, I enjoy stories. I just want to give you a part of me that just hits home to a lot of things that we talk about. So story time. How I got into building, creating, establishing, maintaining healthy relationships came from years ago. Years ago, I was a facilitator for domestic violence groups. Now, as a facilitator for domestic violence groups, I didn't just get thrown to the wolves to jump in to start doing the sessions, but the sessions were for about 6 months for perpetrators of domestic violence, perpetrators and victims. So these are people who were caught abusing someone physically, mentally, emotionally, or a victim, someone who has received abuse, financial, emotional, physical, whole nine. So this was part of the police department that I was working for at the time. So I had to do training. And in my training for 6 months, I had to observe groups, domestic violence groups. So what I noticed in these groups is the purpose of the entire group was to teach men and women how to establish and maintain a healthy relationship. The core of the issues of what happened with domestic violence was unhealthy relationships that people didn't know how to manage the unhealthiness. So if I don't know how to deal with my anger, my frustration, I may hit, I may harm, I may do some things. It's a learned behavior. We repeat what we know. So domestic violence happens because people are in unhealthy relationships and they repeat what they know. So what I found is anybody who has been a victim or perpetrator of domestic violence, there's a lot of reasons of why it happens. A lot of reasons that people are in those relationships or stay in those relationships. Several reasons. It's not just one thing. So what I learned from my experience as a group facilitator learning was that it could happen to anyone at any time because we just don't know. So what hit home for me was as I'm hearing the men share their stories and the women share their stories, I'm seeing patterns. And the patterns are their relationship looks like anyone else's relationship. What happens is when it goes from the emotional abuse or financial abuse into physical abuse, that's when the police gets involved. So understand domestic violence is a crime, and domestic violence is not just physical abuse. That's what we know, that's what we see, that's what we believe, but it's more than that. You may have experienced emotional abuse or financial abuse or mental abuse before the physical abuse ever happens. So that could be verbal assaults, downplaying, talking bad about you, withholding money or withholding sex, withholding certain things. That's an example of domestic violence. So it's to maintain power and control. And some people use what they have to maintain power and control. Withholding sex, withholding money, withholding love, affection, attention, verbal assaults, all of those things are considered domestic violence. So for me, as I'm hearing the men and women share their story, I'm seeing myself in their story because I've been in a few unhealthy relationships. And being in these unhealthy relationships, I didn't know any better, just like most of us don't know. So what I learned is I'm just as bad as the people who are in these groups. The difference is my experience of domestic violence wasn't physical. It was never physical. So even to me, the verbal assaults, the manipulation, all the things that may have happened to me, I didn't consider it as domestic violence because no police got involved and there were no physical bruises, but the emotional bruises were there. And for many of us, and for you specifically, you may have some um, emotional turmoil from those experiences, emotional bruises from those unhealthy relationships in the past or even currently. So please know this plays a role in where we are and who we are. So through this training, I learned about establishing and maintaining a healthy relationship, which is how we ended up here with this course about a decade later. I learned how to establish and maintain healthy relationships from that course as a facilitator. I'm learning. I've had to learn the course to teach it to the people that were there, but I learned about a healthy relationship from that course. That was the core of understanding a healthy relationship. So if it wasn't for me teaching that course or providing that group therapy for that course, I may not be the healthy guy that I am to this day. So I had to share that story to give you the origin of where this came from. So today we're talking about therapy. Use the hashtag try therapy, get everybody involved, get people involved to know what therapy is, be an advocate for this profession. So I'm going to share my screen so we can get this show on the road. So this is a entire presentation about therapy, and it's important that I included this presentation in this course because to me, one of the best ways to begin the process of uncovering, unpacking, peeling back those layers is therapy. It's one of many ways. It's not the only way, but it's one of many ways. And to me, therapy works. How do I know? Been in therapy, in and out of therapy since adulthood, and I do this work. I work with hundreds of couples and individuals all over the US, and I see a lot of the same patterns, and I notice how many people are able to change from their experience in therapy. So I want to give you an overview of what this is. There's going to be a lot of questions that may come up. We can talk about them. I'll answer any questions that you have. Use my expertise and my knowledge to help you help yourself. That's what this is about. I'm not here to convince you to go to therapy. You have to go to therapy. I just want to educate you on what therapy is and what it's not. So hashtag try therapy, creating balance and managing your mental health and wellness. So what we're going to discuss is what is therapy, what is not therapy, aspects of therapy, mental health and trauma, and protecting your peace. So by the time you finish this video today, you will have some resources, you'll have some options, you'll have some thoughts and ideas of how can I start doing things different related to therapy. Also, by the time you finish this video, a lot of thoughts or beliefs that you may have had about therapy may shift. You may become exposed to something new or different from someone who does this work. So what have you heard about therapy? Typically, these are just some common things that I've heard, and I'm sure you've heard about therapy. Number one, it's expensive. It's too expensive. I can't afford it. I'd rather talk to Jesus than talk to a therapist, or I've always been told, try Jesus, don't try therapy. No one is doing therapy that looks like me. So for a lot of you who are people of color, you may not be able to connect with a therapist that look like you. These are some of those ideas or things you've heard. The stigma and stereotype, the stigma about therapy. Black folks don't go to therapy. Stereotype about therapy is for white people. These are beliefs. These are not facts. Again, challenge those beliefs. As you can see, every session connects to the next. We don't talk to people about our problems. Yep, within certain cultures, certain communities, we keep it home. We keep it under the wraps, keep it under the rug. Keep things to ourselves. And you know, as well as I do, those family secrets. We hold on to them and they do not help us. They actually hurt us. And then I don't need somebody to tell me what to do. The idea that a therapist's job is just to give you advice and tell you what to do. That's not the case. What therapy is not is something only white people do. These are facts. I just want to give you facts so we can challenge those beliefs. Therapy is not trying to replace God. That's not the role. That's not the journey. That's not what we're here for. Therapy isn't someone to just listen to your problems. My job as a therapist isn't just to hear you vent and talk. Yes, that feels good. It's therapeutic to a certain extent, but we can't just vent the entire session without willing to do some work. Therapy is not one size fits all. And you're not required to stay with whatever therapist you've selected. So you may have been in therapy, you may have tried therapy before, you may have found a therapist that you really enjoy and love. To me, I don't think anybody should be in therapy for the rest of their lives. It's going to therapy is an opportunity to help you help yourself where you no longer need a therapist. If you've been working with your therapist for 20 plus years, it may be time to get a new therapist if you haven't moved, if you're still stagnant. It's okay to change therapists at any point in time. Therapy does not have to cost you a lot of money. We're going to talk about that as we go further, but it doesn't have to cost you an arm and leg to go to therapy. Therapy is not some white man or white woman telling you what to do or giving you advice. Does that happen? Yes, there are some horrible clinicians out there. There also happens to be a plethora of great clinicians. So choose wisely. You get to interview them just as much as they interview you. We'll talk about that as we go. What therapy is not is Googling information and diagnosing yourself. We can be notorious for Googling symptoms. Oh my God, based off of Google, I'm about dead. Let me start planning my funeral. That's not what therapy is, okay? It's not Googling and diagnosing. It's actually talking to a licensed professional who's able to give you some assistance and support beyond what's on the internet. Therapy is also not venting and asking for answers on social media. So you may have friends who are therapists. You may have family members who are therapists. That doesn't mean that they're your therapist. That doesn't mean that what they post on social media is enough for you when you consider therapy. So therapy is actually having someone that's your identified therapist that you meet with, not what you see on social media. Therapy is not a lifelong commitment. The end all be all. Therapy is not easy and it's uncomfortable. These are all facts. It doesn't have to be forever. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end all be all. As mentioned, it's not easy. Hear me. Therapy is not easy, which is why many of us have some resistance to even consider it. I don't want to deal with my stuff. I have a hard time looking in the mirror right now. And you want me to divulge this information to somebody, a complete stranger? Yes, we all have our stuff about therapy. Some are very receptive and open, and others not so much. So my job, my role here is to educate you for you to make a conscious decision if you want to try therapy. Purpose of the hashtag is for you to try therapy. Period. It's simple as trying Pepsi over Coke, trying a different drink, trying a different food, trying a different street, trying a different route, trying a different approach. That's my stance on therapy, is to at least try it. Try it. If you like it, great. Keep going. If you don't, try a different therapist. For whatever reason, for many of us, we'll try therapy one time. If it don't work the way we want it to, we'll stop going. Last time I checked, no one goes to McDonald's, have bad service, and stop eating McDonald's forever. All facts, all day. But for whatever reason, when it comes to therapy, we are notorious for trying one time and giving up if it doesn't work the way we want it. I want to challenge you to do something different. Or if you haven't done it, maybe now it's your time to try. So, what is therapy? Therapy is a form of treatment aimed at relieving emotional distress and mental health concerns. Therapy is provided by a variety of trained professionals such as psychiatrists, psychologists, licensed counselors, or licensed social workers. Therapy involves examining and gaining insight into life choices and difficulties faced by individuals, couples, and families. Therapy encourages you to step outside your comfort zone, challenge your beliefs and behaviors, and assist you with creating and maintaining healthy balance in your life. That's what therapy is. So, all of those things benefit you. It's not about everybody else. It's not about family, friends. It's about you. Therapy is about you. So, who is providing therapy? Several people. All of these people work together to provide services to people. So you'll hear it all the time. A social worker, a therapist, a counselor, psychologist. What's the difference? I want to break these down for you. So I'll start with counselor or therapist. These words are used interchangeable. Counselor, therapist could be the same. Everybody uses a different connotation based off of who they are, based off of what they prefer. Typically, when you look at finding a counselor or a therapist, you want to find someone who is licensed. That can be a LAC, ALC, or LPC. Typically, an LPC is a licensed professional counselor. Myself, I'm an LPC, but before you get that license, you work as an apprentice. So you'll see someone with credentials that may say LAC or ALC, which is an associate licensed counselor or licensed associate counselor. So associate is someone working towards their professional counseling license. Either one you pick, they're still great at their work, at their job. Social workers, with the counselor's therapist, it's very cognitive. It's about the mindset, it's about behavior, it's about personality. It's really about how can we help you become the best version of you. Social workers' perspective is a little more global. So it's more about the person as a whole, who you are, your family, your upbringing, your environment, who you're around. It's a big picture mentality with social workers, but they're able to provide therapy just like a counselor is. So all the people listed can provide one-on-one talk therapy. It's just a different dynamic or different approach. What's important is you find who's a good fit for you. Find a good fit for you. Next is a psychologist. A psychologist typically has a PhD or a PsyD, and a psychologist typically may do talk therapy. They also may do assessments. They may do some diagnosing. The same thing happens for social workers and counselors as well. So typically psychologists may be more diagnosing, more assessment, more cognitive. So it's just a different way of providing services, but overall, as I mentioned before, it's all providing services to us. And last but not least is a psychiatrist, which is a medical doctor. A psychiatrist typically prescribes medication. They may not spend a lot of time with talk therapy. Some psychiatrists do, but some do not. They do medication management. So each one of these aspects vary from person to person. It's not one size fits all. It's not one dimensional. So be mindful. Just because somebody, may have certain credentials or do certain things, they don't do it all the same. That's really important to keep in mind. Some aspects of therapy. Number one is confidential. Everything that you discuss with your therapist will stay between you and your therapist. A counseling hour. Typically, a counseling hour is about 50 minutes. Now, it may vary based off of your state, but it can be between 45 minutes up to 60 minutes. For me, within my practice, I do 50 minutes. Typically, a counseling hour for me is 50 minutes, and that 10 minutes is for me to write my note, run to the bathroom, eat lunch, scream, whatever. So that's why a counseling hour is set up the way it is. A counselor also is non-biased and they have a non-biased and non-judgmental approach. Now, none of us are non-biased. None of us are non-judgmental. However, I can keep my biases and judgmental outside of the therapy room. Some people, we're trained as clinicians, we're trained to keep our bias and our beliefs to the side when it comes to working with people, because our job is to help you help yourself. What does my belief, bias, or judgment have to do with you? Absolutely nothing. So we're trained not to bring that into the counseling session. Therapy is goal-oriented. Typically, you're going to come up with about 2 or 3 goals that you would like to work on to give you some direction between you and your therapist. Your therapist may have some goals in mind or will help you develop goals that you want to work on. So you don't have to have a routine. You don't have to have an agenda. You don't have to have anything. Just show up. Just show up. Your therapist will help you discover what are some things that you want to work on. As I mentioned before with the onion analogy, the heart of the onion is covered by many, many layers. Your therapist's job is to peel back one layer at a time. So you're going to come in with whatever you want to share, which is that outer onion. And our job as a trained clinician is to peel back layers. So understand that clinicians go to school for a very long time, to develop skills and abilities to help you help yourself. Their role is to not give you advice or tell you what to do because you are the expert of your own life. Their job is to help you help yourself. So there are goals. And once you accomplish goals, guess what? You get to create another one. So you can do as many goals that you want to work towards till you get to a place where you feel as though I don't need my therapist anymore. And that's the goal. Get to the place where you don't need your therapist because you found what works for you and you know how to make the best decisions that work for you. Cost and insurance. Yeah, therapy can be expensive, absolutely. But as we mentioned before, this is self-investment. A lot of times we're not willing to invest in ourselves, but we're willing to invest in external things. Therapy is an internal investment because anytime you pay for a session, you're paying for that internal work. So it can be expensive. It doesn't have to be. There are several opportunities out there to provide scholarships to pay a discounted rate. Some therapists have a sliding scale based off of income. Some do pro bono work, including myself. Some people have different agencies that they connect with for nonprofit that you can do therapy for completely free. Others may use insurance. You have options to use your insurance. Your company may have EAP services where you're already paying for insurance through your, I'm sorry, already paying for therapists through your insurance. So check with your insurance company. I'm sorry, check in with your company where you work to see if they offer EAP so you can get therapy for free or you've already paid for. So it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. Also, you can negotiate a rate. Every therapist have their set rate, but a lot of therapists, many therapists are open to negotiating what works. So you can ask, hey, those prices are a little steep for me. I would love to work with you. Is it possible we can work at a different rate? There's no harm in asking. You have that ability. Also, you want to look at who's a good fit. Somebody may be cheaper, but they may not be a good fit. You get what you pay for sometimes. And some people may charge a lot and do not provide the best work. It happens. It happens. So if you're paying for a service and you're not getting the service that you want, you could always terminate that therapist and find a new therapist that's a better fit for your price. In person or virtual. With the pandemic, virtual therapy has become the new thing. My practice is completely virtual now because of the pandemic, which has been a blessing because low overhead, very low overhead, as well as we can meet at your convenience in your home, in your car, wherever you have internet access, you can meet. So virtual therapy has really been growing a lot this past couple of years because of the pandemic. Or in person, you go to that person's office. You don't have to sit on there. You don't have to lay on the couch. You can sit on it. You can do whatever you want in session. Like it's no rules or laws besides the ones you create in that therapy room, in that therapy space. You can do whatever you want to do. And if you're not able to do whatever you want to do, you may want to find a new therapist because you make the rules when it comes to therapy. Therapist's job is to maintain structure. As far as content, that's on you. Last but not least, you get what you put in. You go to therapy, you sit and stare at a therapist for an hour every week. Guess what you get back? Nothing. You get out what you put in session is where a lot of magic happens. A lot of things happen in session, but a lot of work that you do happens outside of session. Think about how this course is set up. We do a lot of work in session with us doing this video together. We're talking together. It's good info, it's good insight. But then the work that you do outside of this, when you're journaling, when you're doing the workshop, um, the worksheets and the assessments, that's when the work. And then you're applying this information. That's when that real work and that real change really takes place. So you get an insight of it, and then you start taking action towards the things that you've learned. So why therapy? Why not therapy? That's a better question. Why not therapy? Because we all can benefit from therapy. For whatever reason, well, for several reasons, the counseling profession has been given a negative light and more positive light recently because more people are talking about therapy. But the reason the negative or unhealthy views about it were based off of unhealthy experiences or the lack of knowledge and awareness, the lack of truth that happens. So just like we can go to a physical therapist for physical therapy or to a doctor for our physical health, we can do the same when it comes to our mental health. So it's being mindful that if I'm working on myself, I'm creating balance, and that balance comes from my emotional, spiritual, physical, and mental health and well-being. So several reasons that people go. One of the main things that happen for a lot of us is trauma. Trauma is the response to a deeply distressed or disturbing event that overwhelms an individual's ability to cope, causes feelings of helplessness, diminishes their sense of self and their ability to feel a full range of emotions and experiences. All of us have experienced some level of trauma in some kind of way from our upbringing to now, whether we give it credit or not. Some of us, many of us have. So, what are some examples of trauma within your culture and your community? Write it down, journal those thoughts, journal what you experienced from your own experience growing up. So just for example, a few experiences that people can have related to trauma. Number one, it could be, disconnect between parents, such as divorce. Divorce can be a traumatic experience, no matter what age group that you're in when that divorce happens. Trauma could be related to your parents, not your mother, not dealing with her stuff and her stuff coming on to you, such as verbal abuse, anger, frustration, not allowing you to express your feelings, your emotions. Same thing for dad, for your father, him not being there, not being around, or not involved, or he's physically there, but mentally he's out of space, or emotionally he just wasn't able to give you the needs that you needed. The attachment piece, or not having or not getting needs met. I mean, you name it. There's so many different things. Sexual abuse, sexual assault, um, molestation. These things happens. Addiction, drug addiction, maybe not be from you, could be from your parents, your environment, not being able to get your needs met, your financial needs met. I mean, the trauma is real. PTSD is real, and many of us have experienced it. So for me, being a Black man in America is traumatic. How do we know this? Turn on the news. So 99.9% of the time, I'm authentic. I'm my authentic self. That 0.1% of the time is when I can't be authentic, when I get pulled over by the police. Now, yes, I am Dr. Jason Branch, but when I get pulled over by the police, I'm another Black man in a really nice car. There's a lot of questions there for some people. And those people, typically, police officers, can have a view or perception about me regardless of what I am or who I am. It could be based off of my race. That's trauma. So all of us have experienced some level of trauma at work, school, home, siblings, family, you name it. And this is where you can go to therapy to start unpacking that trauma, to start dealing and healing from your experiences. Why therapy? Mental health and trauma. Again, belief systems, the story that we continue to tell ourselves. Please know that you are probably telling yourself a lot of the same stories that's not working for you. Think of the story that you constantly tell related to relationships or marriage. You say the same thing over and over and over again. To me, if I'm saying the same things, that means I think the same things. If I think the same things, guess what? My behavior stays the same. So therefore, I'm doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Definition of insanity. So therapy helps with shifting a belief system by providing you with a different perspective, different idea, and thoughts to use to help you help yourself. The next is learn behaviors. I can only repeat what I know. I mentioned before, we're going to be just like our parents, a complete opposite, or somewhere in the middle. Your job is to become the best version of you by doing what works best for you. How can I do what works best for me if I keep doing what my mama said I should do, or my father said I should do, or my family said I should do? So I'm repeating learned behaviors, which again, the heart and the mind, they don't align. That's me being inauthentic or incongruent. If I'm congruent and authentic, my mind and my heart, they align, which means my behavior does the same. I'm living through trauma. Many of us are living through trauma. We are repeating what we experience. So think about your relationships, the argument, the reason that you argue, how you respond to argument, ghosting, you name it. It's all part of our trauma, part of our experiences that we've had, part of the stuff that brings about unhealthy balance. So how can I be in a healthy relationship if I'm an unhealthy person? Yeah, that's deep. It's almost impossible to be in it's almost impossible to be in a healthy relationship with an unhealthy person. In order to get into a healthy relationship, you want to be healthy yourself first. Remaining comfortable. We can benefit from therapy because therapy is uncomfortable and it forces you to be uncomfortable and do uncomfortable things. So we do the same thing and expect different results. If I go to therapy, it's going to encourage me to do some things different in order to get different results. It's really difficult to go to therapy every week and do the same thing. It's really difficult. And that's why some people do not stay in therapy, because of how difficult it is. Next is heal and deal. Consider therapy if you've been dealing with things that you've experienced from your past that you've never addressed. And a lot of times it's not addressed because within our community, we're told, don't talk about it. It's a secret. Leave it alone. Move on. Get over it. And we can't. We don't just get over things. We have to heal through things instead of just dealing with them. So allow yourself to heal and free yourself from those experiences that you've had from the past. Therapy is one way to do that. So protecting your peace, moving forward. These are just some things that I want to give you outside of therapy. I highly recommend you consider therapy, try therapy, use the hashtag. So protecting your peace, you have to be willing to step outside your comfort zone. You've been hearing this over and over again. Maybe it's time to do it. Continue to look into doing things different by considering therapy. Find your therapist, connect with them. Take a break from news and social media outlets. Sometimes news media can be traumatic, can be depressing, could be stressful, anxiety producing it within itself. Same thing for social media, because we can consistently and constantly compare ourselves to other people. How do we know this? Think about your friends that may be around you who it's perceived that they're in healthy and happy relationships, but in reality, probably sucks. Or you find out later, your favorite couple gets a divorce because it probably was unhealthy for a while, but they played it cool. They made it look like it was great. We're great at doing that, especially on social media. Block, delete, unfollow, and unfriend. It's okay to let them go. Some people can't stay with you in the direction that you're about to go. Again, we can't keep watering dead plants. Some of those relationships, you need to leave where they are, dead. Like Crypt Keeper, gone, dead. Let them lay, let them stay. So be able, if you struggle with blocking, deleting, unfollowing, unfriending, that is your struggle, and there's a reason behind it. Some people do not belong in your space, in your presence, in your life anymore, and you can let them go. That includes family. We can't choose our family, but we can choose how we deal with them. All facts, all day. Find your tribe and connect. If you don't have a great tribe, if you hang around 9 dummies, you'll be the 10th. You hang around 9 broke folks, you'll be the 10th. You hang around 9 people in unhealthy relationships, you'll be the 10th. So start connecting with people who are doing the things that you enjoy or that you want to do as well. It's kind of hard to be around great people and not become great yourself. Be mindful of what you can control versus what you cannot. The same rules apply to what if and what is. You can control what is, you can't control what you can control. There's only one person that you can control or change, and that's you, my friend. You and you only. When you are ready, I think this is really important, have a few difficult, or I would say courageous conversations. You know those individuals that you owe a courageous conversation with to free yourself. That includes parents, guardians, siblings, you name it. There's people that you haven't shared your truth with for whatever reason. And to me, it's important to have those courageous conversations so you can find truth and live life on your own terms. Next piece, this is important because when we meet individually, if I hear it, I'm gonna call you out. I'm letting you know now. I'm sorry. When we meet individually, if I hear it, I'm gonna call it out. You have to stop apologizing for being exactly who you are. Okay? No apology is necessary or needed when you are being you. And I support it, all of it. So don't apologize for being you. Be you, they will adjust. Last but not least, you are not a tree. That means at any point in time, you can leave an unhealthy marriage, an unhealthy relationship, an unhealthy job, an unhealthy situation. You are not a tree, which means you are not planted, rooted, and stuck. You can leave whenever you get ready. The reason that you stay stuck is because you believe you deserve to be stuck. Get out of your own way, step out of your comfort zone, and do something new, different, and uncomfortable every day this week. Continue protecting your peace. Practice more self-care. Please know you signed up for the right course because you're going to learn about self-care before you leave this course. You're going to find out a systematic approach of how to practice self-care using the ESPM model for self-care. Understand that you cannot pour from an empty cup, although we try. It's impossible. How can you be Superwoman and try to save the world if you're not willing to save yourself first? Also, last time I checked, Superwoman can't save everyone. She saves who she can. But you, my friend, is trying to save everyone with what you have. You don't even have half those superpowers that Superwoman has. So moving on, increase self-awareness and self-discovery. To me, therapy is one place that you can really dive into your self-awareness and self-discovery. Determine who you are. Understand who you are. Dive into you. Get over yourself and get out of your way. It's important to do that. If I didn't get over myself and get out of my own way, I wouldn't have gotten married. It would not have happened. I wouldn't have become healthy. I had to move away from those unhealthy behaviors and unhealthy patterns. True story. I mentioned this before. We're going to be just like our parents, a complete opposite or somewhere in the middle. No shade, no disrespect, but I'm sharing my truth with you. And my truth is my parents divorced when I was about 2. My mom was in some unhealthy relationships and then later found a healthy relationship and got married to my stepfather. And then my dad was, after the divorce, he ended up getting married again twice. So he's been married thrice, which is 3 times. Wants to get married again, but not to the woman who he's currently dating. But he's still in that relationship. Why? Because we do what we know, we do what's comfortable. So I was the complete opposite of my dad. I didn't want to be married thrice. So guess what? I did not get married. I did not get married until I was ready. I did not get married until I knew for sure this was it. And that took 38 years to get to. But I'm here now because there's no timeline besides the ones we create. And I expect to be married longer than I've ever been single. That's my story. That's my truth. Balance and build and rebuild healthy relationships. There's a lot of unhealthy relationships that you're a part of. Get rid of them. Get out of them as quickly as possible. Old relationships that may have happened, friends, family, coworkers, whatever. My suggestion in purple, make it right. Ask for forgiveness. Be willing to forgive. People may have hurt you. Be willing to forgive them. We are all doing the best we can with what we have. Next is accept people for who they are and not who you want them to be. This is powerful. This is a game changer. We have to be willing to accept people for who they are and not who we want them to be, because everybody that you meet, parents, friends, family, guardians, whomever, we want them to be who we want them to be based off of what we believe, not the facts. For example, I want my mom or my dad to treat me like this or that, even if they don't. That's what we want. So I expect them to be something they're not. We are all doing the best we can what we have. Accept people for who they are and what they bring to the table, not what you want them to bring. Last, be willing to ask or seek professional help. I'm a professional counselor. I'm one of many. I'm a Black male counselor. I'm a unicorn, but I'm not the only one. Find who's a good fit for you. Your therapist does not have to look like you to provide service, but there is comfort working with someone who does look like you. So share what you've learned today. Share these facts with someone else. Have some dialogue, have some conversation, because this is important for us to start doing things different and better for ourselves. Additional resources. One way to start connecting, like now that I got all this information, what do I do? Where do I go? One of the easiest places to connect with a therapist is www.psychologytoday.com. Enter your zip code and you can scroll through several therapists in your area to see what their specialty, how much they charge, do they take insurance, where they go to school, how long they've been in profession. You get a picture, you get a video, you get access. The thing about finding a therapist is very similar to dating. Yeah, unfortunately, it's very similar to dating because we have to find who's a good fit. And sometimes we got to date a few people. We got to connect with a few therapists in order to find who's a good fit for us. So Psychology Today is one I highly recommend because you have access no matter where you are. Therapy for Black girls, therapy for Black men. You got a man in your life or around your life, could be your daddy, send them over. Send them over. This therapy thing is not just for women, it's for all. So this is just a resource. You can get this information. You can help men too. Black female therapist is a database of Black female therapists. You're looking for a Black woman specifically. Black Men Heal. And then telehealth services. So you can use telehealth services, as I mentioned before, if you want to do virtual, synchronous and asynchronous, through Talkspace, BetterHelp, or Ayana Therapy. Ayana Therapy is specifically for the BIPOC community. So that's Black, Indigenous, people of color. So if you're a person of color, Ayana Therapy is a virtual counseling service for people of color. So that's an overview. Questions, comments, concerns? Hit me up. Let me know. I am an open book, wide open. Ask anything you would like. I post a lot of different things on social media. Feel free to add me on social media. Hashtag try therapy. Connect with me. Let's create a community of people who are willing to go to therapy for the first time. We're changing the generational curses, these generational gaps. We're doing things different. So it's been a pleasure connecting with you for this section of our course. And as you can see, it's packed with a lot of information. Try not to absorb too much of it where you're getting overwhelmed. Again, run your race at your pace. Take your time. Find what works best for you. I am proud of you. I appreciate you. Much love to you for just being here, being a part of this, and willing to do something new, different, and uncomfortable. Much love.